Hello, hello, dear listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Therapy Reveal. I'm Blue, your host for today's episode, and in today's episode, we are continuing our conversation with Emily Wu Truong from last week, and this is part two of Facing Adversity.
Mm.
And building on that experience, and other experiences that you mentioned, like thus far, how can, I guess, individuals, both within and outside the Asian American community, how can they support and contribute to the cause of normalizing mental health treatment?
Mm. Okay, so first of all, and I gave out some of these suggestions actually to LA County Department of Health recently because I've been like their volunteer consultant for the last 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
like, when a system works when clinicians work in a system, they can only see what they see from their point of view. But because they're not a client receiving services from the system, they don't know what people are experiencing until they say it. And so
Mhm.
that's why, I have to keep on, telling people like, this is what my recommendations are, but you guys like, you didn't actively ask me before.
Mhm.
And now that I've been I've been in the system, in different ways, like receiving services, I have to report. I have to report to them when services are terrible, like my 5150 experience in the ER and in
Mhm.
the psychiatric ward, like, and then afterwards they're like, we want you to pay for your horrible experience. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, like,
What
well,
now?
uh,
Like,
yeah, I can definitely see how that's like definitely, yeah, hard, something challenging to wrap your mind around.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like, wait, how did the law become that you can be involuntarily hospitalized against your will without proper assessment for suicide risk? And
Yeah.
you have an ER social worker actually submitting, falsifying patient records and
Mm-hmm.
not overlooking her own submission before she submitted it.
Yeah.
And like, because actually what ended up happening was the second day I looked at my patient records from my 5150, I was like, why does it say this? It says the Columbia Suicide Risk Assessment questions, something like that. And then underneath it are all these questions that say, I'm like, okay, the first one is, do you have suicidal ideation? Do you have a plan to kill yourself? And do you have a detailed plan? And there were like maybe, 3, 4 more questions. And I'm like, she didn't ask me these questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
What? Where did they come from?
yeah, I'm like, why are you answering the questions for me? And
Yeah.
then get this, in the paragraph right after she answers those questions for me, she writes that in a paragraph an assumption, and then after that she writes patient was states that she was emotional earlier and that she does not want to harm herself or
Did they not
others.
hear you out or anything like that? So
I
that's
just
like
right,
what? Did they
like,
not
do you
listen
hear,
to you?
right? I'm like, do you hear the oxymoron in these papers? I'm like, what? And then get this, the doctor even says something like, oh, I, did a full assessment of this patient's physical history, and, he only freaking spent a second in the room with me. How the
Mm.
hell do you get away with unethical activity like that?
Yeah, like that's not.
Where, right?
Yeah.
Where is the oversight? Where is the accountability?
Mm-hmm.
Do I really have to report your social worker to the Department of Behavioral Sciences to have her license revoked?
Dang.
You know, or does she have to, like, you know, where, or maybe somebody's malpractice insurance has to kick in because they did something wrong to me like this,
Yeah.
you know, or, you know, who's gonna even listen to me? Like, because in our society, people are like, oh, well, who's gonna listen to the crazy person? I'm like,
Right.
you know, like
Yeah. Well, that
they,
sucks.
yeah, right. Because I think that this is the reason why my family never wanted me to speak out.
Mm.
Like, because they're trying to say, hey, shush, don't tell everyone you're crazy. Like, because then, you know, you'll be considered like the lowest social, you know, status of the, you know, the lower totem pole of the social status, you know, like no one will think that you're somebody. And and you make life harder for yourself. But it's just like, hey, come on. We need to treat each other as if we're all humans. You
Yeah,
know, we're all
but then
humans.
yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, exactly. Like you don't want to live in fear. Like that's such, I don't know. I don't agree with that lifestyle.
mhm.
Living in fear is not my way to
Exactly.
go. Yeah.
Exactly. I that's why I don't like it either. It's that's why I just, I mean, sometimes people tell me that I'm like naive and that I'm so gullible and oblivious, and it's just like, well, I don't know, like I just choose to live my life authentically, and I don't like to put up with bullshit. Like if you are a real person, I like you even more, but if you are just, you know, you think that life is about brand name and being rich and, you know, because you can live a very lonely lifestyle being rich and not having true friends.
Yeah. I see it all the time, especially with today's society.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
social media makes it hard for us to see that though. Like it hides so many things that, that's not picture perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's kind of sad to see, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that that fakeness all around us. Yeah.
Exactly, because all they want to show you is the positive side of their life. Oh, look at me, look at me, look at me. And I know that like I kind of feed into that too sometimes, but I also tell it like it is too. I tell people when I'm tired. I tell people when I'm exhausted. I I I post sometimes because that's my way of also telling people, hey, I'm still alive, you know, like and I'm still on fire because you know, what happened to me can potentially happen to anyone. And I don't want people to fall through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, you know, some people were very untrained and not trained, and you know, um we need to really take a good look at our systems and evaluate them, and to see which parts of the system are helpful and reevaluate the parts that are unhelpful,
Mm-hmm.
and chuck
Absolutely.
away, you know, chuck away with the stuff, the part that doesn't help,
Yeah,
you know.
I agree.
um
Thank you for
yeah,
sharing that. Yeah.
of course, yeah. I mean,
Um,
I enjoyed these kinds of conversations because it's like we if we never talk about progress, you know,
right.
how are we going to get anywhere? You
Yeah,
know,
I
we need
know.
to indulge minds to think critically, to help our society evolve and we're really behind on the evolution of character
Absolutely. Yeah.
because greediness has taken over the
Hmm.
world.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's what people call capitalism.
I mean, it can come in one or many forms. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just went to a Latino mental health conference recently, and they talked about the trauma of colonialism,
Yeah.
oppression,
Yeah.
and a caste system with that has a hierarchy of the worth of people,
Mm,
you know, and there's a lot of power dynamics at play everywhere in the
right.
world.
Yeah. I agree.
And I feel that the most dangerous parts are when um there's a tragic, if you'd like to know, there are three tragic stories that I can share with you about other Asian Americans in the Sangirma Valley who have been greatly impacted by the system, in addition to my 5150 from 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So over 10 years ago, my sister, whom I call Nancy Ang,
Mm-hmm.
she lost her younger sister to cops killing her, and her name was Jasmine Ha Ang,
Oh.
and she was shy, like she was killed a few days before her birthday. And because these officers were trying to remove a small ball peen hammer in her hand, and the Asian mental health clinic was trying to tell the cops that, this is a low-level emergency and they never intended for it to result in death.
Mm.
Jasmine actually was trying to escape a 5150. She did not want to be involuntarily hospitalized against her will.
Yeah.
And, that's what also happened to me. And I wanted to, escape my 5150, but they were like, by law, we're supposed to keep you in here.
Oh.
And then the cop, like this is the way I was notified that I was being 5150. He said, okay, and I was very compliant. I was never erratic. And they said, the cop said to me at the entrance of the ER, he said, I'm sorry to have to do this to you, but do you know you're being 5150?
What? No
What? Yeah.
way. Yeah. Like, huh?
I'm mind blown. I'm just like, is this the proper way you're supposed to tell someone that you're locking them up in a hospital against their will?
Oh no.
What the fuck?
Like what?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's the proper way to tell someone that's just not right. And then and then when I started receiving the bills after I finally got home, like I'm just like, what the hell? You can this should be illegal to like charge someone for their involuntary mistreatment in the ER and the psychiatric ward and tell them to pay for it all. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
There's just
Yeah.
so many ironies to this story, you know? And so, okay, so Jasmine Ha Ang's death was terrible. And that's why I got involved with NAMI, because they had a connection to LA County District Attorney Jackie Lacey back in the day when she was still in office. And then, Jackie Lacey made it mandatory for all law enforcement to get trained in crisis intervention training and de-escalation techniques when interacting with people with mental health disabilities, and and I was really happy to be part of that training.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
and so um but but because of the pandemic and also the change in leadership, so Gascon has been the current leader, district attorney, which many people don't like. And I just think that because of the pandemic and stuff, like all the trainings, the CIT trainings have dwindled, and the independent police departments are not getting trained when they should be. And so another story that happened about maybe over a year ago was my uncle. He I mean, this is a distant uncle that I have never met actually, but he's a extended relative, and I was told that his story was that he was having chest pains, and he wanted to go to the ER in Pomona. And then but then, like, for some reason, someone thought that he was a danger to himself, or others. So he got 5150, and then he was transferred to a psychiatric ward. And I don't know, but they gave him medication, and then he died the next day.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh. Was it
So
an
I don't
overdose?
know. I'll say again.
Was it an overdose?
Yeah.
Oh.
They gave him too much,
Mm.
and it affected him. So, and then the coroner writes that his reason for death, inconclusive. However, there were high toxic levels of psychiatric medication in his blood. Hello? Who bribed you? Who paid you to
Uh,
write that?
uh-oh. Oh no.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just, to hear things like this is just so disgusting. And that ER social worker made the decision to transfer my uncle without letting the family even know.
What is going on?
Exactly. So it's just like, I don't like hearing these bizarre stories. And the last story I'll share with you is this one that happened also in Rosemead. So there was this mother, and this story actually was highlighted in LA Times several years ago. And there was this lady, immigrant mother. The father had already passed away, and her and her son were having a hard time grieving the loss of the dad. And then the mother, she found out that she was chronically ill from some disease, and the doctor said you only have this much time left before you die.
Oh.
So she knew that she had a troubled child.
Yeah.
Who was in maybe high school, and maybe he had autism or schizophrenia or both. And he was bullied in school. And he liked playing video games had first person shooter guns. And so she looked through his journal or something and she thought she saw a hit list. So she took matters into her own hands. She bought a gun. She rented a motel room. She brought her son there and killed him.
Oh.
And so the courts, she was taken before a judge. And I don't know what ended up happening in the end, but there was a movie made about the story. called Paper Tigers, and you can watch it on Amazon Prime.
Paper
So
tigers.
yeah. And there's also another documentary. I forget the name of it at the moment, and if I think of it, I'll mention it. There is a documentary about the Palo Alto suicide clusters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this, someone should showcase this movie like in a film screening, because it just talks about the way that, everyone thinks that the kids in the Bay Area in Northern California, are so smart, and they have to keep up with the high expectations that the parents have placed on them. In the Asian culture, it's almost like, if you have only a BA, that's nothing. You have to reach master's or PhD level.
Oh, that's a lot of
At
pressure.
least,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, I kind of, because of that expectation in the Asian culture, it's just like, it can make a lot of Asian kids who are not compatible with school feel like, oh, I'm not as worthy because my grades are not perfect. They're not straight A's. And then I realized that after living for 41, 40, 41 years of my life, it takes me this past year to finally realize I've been an artist all my life, and I
Yeah.
just
Can you share with us your
finished.
art?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is one of the earliest drawings that I did a long time ago. And I love Disney. I used to want to be a Disney animator because
Mm-hmm.
I love cartoons. I love colors. So, and this is one I just finished last night.
Oh, that's so cute. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous colors too.
Yes, thank
Wow.
you. It was actually, this, what inspired me to do this was actually a location in Denver, Colorado. And so if you were to look up the International Church of Cannabis, you'll see that they have such a beautiful chapel. Let's see if this shows up on the screen. So you see this?
Yeah, I see it. Oh, that's a lot of color.
Right?
Wow. Oh my gosh. What chapel was it again?
This is called the International Church of Cannabis in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, I
I
see.
have yet to go there.
Really? That's so colorful.
Because their ceiling is the inspiration of this top part of my yin and yang symbol.
Mm-hmm. I love your
And
rendition of that yin and yang symbol. It's like it's very, yeah, I love it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because like, I almost actually, when I showed my husband a picture of the church, right? I
Hmm.
was like, hey husband, can I decorate the inside of our house like this? He's like, start smaller.
Start smaller. I love
Yeah,
that. That's
yeah.
funny.
And I've also done a lot of you know, singing and dancing and playing the piano. If you go on my Instagram, every now and then I'll go visit like my mom's home, and I'll play on her grand piano.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I just had my first performance on stage in front of many people
Mm-hmm.
this past July in Santa Monica, and it was so much fun because like I felt like I was really being celebrated, and for my talents, and which I never felt like could ever come out.
Mm-hmm.
And like I really felt like I was shining on stage, My goodness, it was a performing arts stage. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's so
Ah,
beautiful here.
I
It's no,
know.
right?
Yeah.
It's not ordinary stage. It's like ones that people do musicals on, you
I
know, like,
know. Oh, that's insane.
oh,
That's
yeah,
so
it was
cool.
so cool. And like, even like the young children were my first greeters after that show. And they just loved my performance because basically, I would say that they connected with my inner child.
I love that. That's so
Yeah,
good.
it was. Let me see if I can find that photo because yeah, I found it. They looked at me as if I was a Disney princess.
Oh, that's so cute. That's
Yeah,
super
that's
affectionate.
actually me wearing a butterfly wings.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that. That's so
yeah.
cool. Oh
And
my gosh.
so, yeah, because, sometimes when I wear these, let me see if I can find a better picture of my butterfly wings. Because when I go to like events, dance parties, like I like to bring color to my clothing as a fashionista to like, cheer people up and be a symbol of transformation and hope.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we all need to learn how to hope. We need to learn how to hope
Yeah.
and have hope
Mm-hmm.
when sometimes we feel like, well, can we keep going?
Right.
Do we see the light at the end of the tunnel? I
Yeah.
mean, have you been in moments like that where you feel like, oh my gosh, where's that light?
Yeah, I definitely have had moments where I felt myself, you know, just in the dark, couldn't see the light for some time. But then eventually I was able to, I guess, work my way through it, per se. Yeah.
How did you work your way through it?
Honestly, it took a lot of, what's it, reflection and then just being able to communicate my
Mm-hmm.
struggles because it helps me a lot to, I guess, vocalize what's going through my mind and, just my struggles in general. It allows me to alleviate the pain,
Yeah,
I guess, just talking it out.
yeah, good.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
that's important.
yeah. So I do that a lot. And another thing that I do is I choose to forgive. And yeah.
Mm.
And then I
Oh
also,
my, wow, that's an
yeah,
important one.
yeah.
That's like something that we need to talk about more often too, because
Honestly, yeah.
right, we need to talk about humility. We need to talk about accountability, and what's the last one you just said right now?
Uh, forgive?
Yeah, forgiveness,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Those are hard to do. Easy to
Hmm.
say, but hard to do,
Absolutely. Like
right?
when I first started, during my, I guess, what's it, mental health journey,
Mm-hmm.
I had to, it was definitely really challenging at first, but then over time, as I kept practicing it over and over again, each time it got easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it
Mm.
definitely wasn't easy at first. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, with any skill that you practice in the beginning, it's always going to be the hardest, but then the more you accustom yourself to doing, tolerating stress, the better you get at it. But it's
Yeah.
just like at the same time, it's just like the way I feel about life challenges is it honestly feels like God is throwing all these hurdles in your life and you're just like, And like maybe okay, let's pretend you're playing Wii. Did you ever play Wii when you're growing up?
Once or twice, yeah.
Did you use that the Wii board when you're like practicing balance?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I remember vaguely.
Okay, so there's a soccer game in
Mm-hmm.
there, and you're
Yeah.
supposed to hit the soccer balls
Mm-hmm.
with your head on the board, right?
Oh.
And then you're supposed to avoid the shoes and the bombs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in life, I feel like when you get something right, you're hitting the soccer balls, right? And then when life gets faster, and then you accidentally hit like the you know the bombs and the shoes, and you're just like you get out of balance, and you're like, oh
No,
my god, like
I know.
you start getting hit by more and more and more of them, and you're just like, come on, stop the game, like
I know. Oh my gosh.
you know, and that's what life really feels like.
Yeah,
I'm like, I
absolutely.
was right. I'm like,
Yeah.
I wasn't done with figuring out that problem solution, and now you already gave me another one from this side of my
Like, no.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and but like I when I went to church recently, I not that I'm religious, but you know, when you are out there in the world and you're trying to figure out like, you know, who can provide me with some spiritual guidance, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I take the parts that I like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this pastor, he says, and this is my interpretation of what he said. We're all in over our heads. And then he also said, and this is my interpretation, none of us have life figured out yet. You know,
That is,
and right,
yeah.
right. So I just and I understand in some ways we are doing the best that we can, but sometimes when we are doing the best we can, that's not enough for you know some people. But then if other people cannot meet our expectation, I think that's where we have to lower it and bring it down to zero. Then no one can, you know, make you suffer anymore.
Mm, I see.
Well, that's it for today's therapy reveal. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to part 2 of our conversation with Emily Wu Truong. Tune in to next week's episode, which will cover part 3 of our conversation, Facing Adversity, with Emily Wu Truong. Until next time.